Since before the beginning of recorded history, people have had a need for the horse. We've grown up with it, made use of its wild instincts. Great kings, generals, explorers, even the gods, all rode horses. But no one ever conquered its independent spirit. People simply harnessed its energy, put it to use. Horse. Its powerful, perfect movements have long captivated us. The wild, fiery, supreme speedster, horse. Even the name creates, in the carousel of our minds, a whirling image of excitement, adventure, danger. An image that transforms ordinary people into heroes. It was a horse that elevated Paul Revere from humble craftsman to living legend. One April night in 1775, he borrowed a neighbor's horse and galloped across the state of Massachusetts to warn that soldiers from England were marching across the land. His early warning gave the Americans time to prepare for the first battle in the War of Independence. The horse is perfectly equipped for marathon journeys such as this that require strength, stamina, and speed. It's the fifth fastest land animal, a long-distance gold medalist. A cheetah can sprint nearly twice as fast, but over long distances, the horse will always win. The key to the horse's marathon success can be found in its wild relative, the zebra. On the dry plains of Central Africa, zebras will race 100 kilometers to find rain they've spotted on the horizon. Where there's rain, there's food. Feral horses, such as these Camargue, don't need to run for food, but they still have the same instincts as the zebra, for they are descended from the same ancestor. 55 million years ago, the first horse was no bigger than a small dog. With 3 padded toes on its back feet and 4 on the front. The toes spread out so the animal could walk on soft ground. As forests diminished and grasslands spread, it moved out onto the plains, adapting to the changing environment. To run faster, it grew longer legs, lost all but one of the toes on each foot, and developed that into a hoof. With longer legs, the creature needed a longer neck to graze. And so, 3 million years ago, Equus evolved, mother of the modern horse family. The Przewalski, a primitive horse from the plains of Mongolia, resembles the original Equus. It shares features with both the zebra and the domesticated horse. Its mane doesn't flow. It stands up straight. And it's got a dorsal stripe, like the zebra. As horses developed, so did humans. For centuries, they hunted the horse simply for food. Then, 5,000 years ago, the people of the Ukraine harnessed them to pull their carts. Of all the animals, why harness the horse? Availability. It lived close to where people raised flocks and grew their crops. And adaptability. They rely on quantity rather than quality, grazing on almost anything that grows in the open, so they can live in places where other herbivores can't. In the wild, they spend at least 15 hours a day eating. As a prey animal, eating can be dangerous. With head close to the ground, enemies can't be seen. So a grazing horse looks up to search for danger at least 1,000 times a day. It's no effort to lift the head. If it were, the horse would soon tire itself out. A horse's neck is like a coiled spring that stores energy. The horse is an intelligent creature, but its brain is most developed in areas associated with muscle coordination. The skull is long in order to contain all the teeth needed for grinding up vegetation. The horse is built for marathon speed. The bones are thin, the skeleton light. The backbone keeps the body rigid. The rib cage protects the heart and lungs. Long leg bones pivot on pulley-like joints connected to muscle groups. And the whole body is covered in coarse hair, believed in folklore to contain magical properties. As well as being used to string bows of musical instruments, horsehair was said to cure goiter. And if put in water, to turn into eels. In some cultures, it wasn't just hair, but also feathers that covered the horse. In Greek mythology, the goddess Athena used a golden bridle to catch and tame the flying horse, Pegasus. And so it was that men caught, held, and adapted members of the horse family to suit their varying needs. In ancient Rome, mules and donkeys were used to carry equipment. They were vital to the great emperors such as Julius Caesar, and because they were valued, they became very expensive. Horses pulled chariots, and being trampled wasn't the only problem underfoot. Hooves, made of a thick fingernail-like material, wear down on hard surfaces. Horse shoes were devised to protect the horse's feet, created with fire and the magic metal iron which was believed to keep the devil at bay, and fixed by a lucky number of nails, 7. In nearly every country, the horseshoe seemed to be a lucky charm. Even at sea, sailors used them to avert storms and shipwrecks. In 1805, Admiral Nelson had a horseshoe nailed to the mast of HMS Victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. But the horseshoe must always hang open end up, so the good luck doesn't fall out. Like almost every other item of riding equipment, horseshoes were first used by the horsemen of Asia. They were the first people actually to mount and ride on horseback. They also invented the stirrup in around 200 BC. Soon the use of this device spread across the Mediterranean into North Africa. The stirrup gave the riders balance and stability and gave mounted warriors the freedom to use both hands for their weapons. The stirrup has been viewed as the most significant development of warfare between the taming of the horse and the invention of gunpowder. Attila the Hun brought the stirrup to Europe in 435 AD. But not everybody caught on to this new way of riding. There's a story that the English didn't use stirrups at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. The invading Normans did, and they won. The ultimate triumph and mastery of the Eastern horsemen was the cavalry of Genghis Khan. In the 13th century, over a period of 50 years, the great Khans, Genghis and his grandson Kublai, conquered the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Their motto was, "A man's greatest pleasure is to defeat his enemies." A pleasure they achieved on horses no bigger than ponies. The horses they rode are called hot bloods, small but fast. The name hot blood was given to them because they originally came from the hot deserts of the Middle East and North Africa, and because they're high-spirited and quick to react. Breeders call the horses from the forest lands of the north cold-blooded. Nothing to do with the blood temperature, just to do with the origin and temperament of the horse. Cold bloods are strong, heavy horses for battle and for work. Horses for people who grew crops, or who are important enough to travel in style. Warm bloods are a mixture of the two. Hot meets cold, usually gentle. Modern sporting horses, except for the race horses, are warm bloods. Breeding has become so advanced, horses can be custom made. Most modern-day horses are reared from a cocktail of breeds, and the origin of the word cocktail actually comes from horse breeding. The phrase, a cocktailed horse, refers to a horse of mixed blood with a docked tail that resembles the tail of a cockerel. Horse breeding is like arithmetic. For instance, long-term breeding of wild asses led to the donkey, and donkeys can carry on breeding forever, but you can only cross a zebra with a donkey once, which equals a sterile zedonk. Horse plus donkey equals mule. It's a strong and useful animal, but again, sterile. So, end of equation. When it comes to breeding, there's a certain truth in the phrase to be stubborn as a mule. When left to its own devices, nature delivers every time. And by witnessing the natural birth of a domestic horse, we can begin to understand the instincts that govern the survival of its wild relative. In the wild, the horse family is most vulnerable at the moment of birth. As soon as they're born, the young must be able to fend for themselves even in the face of danger. Foals can see and can run within half an hour of birth. They must immediately learn to recognize their mother by both sight and smell. Bonding from birth means that each foal has imprinted in its mind almost instantly an image of its mother. So when danger threatens, a foal knows where to go for the best chance of safety and survival. Each zebra has a unique pattern, one of a kind, almost like a human fingerprint. A zebra's stripes provide one of the most striking and distinctive coats in the animal kingdom. Is it white stripes on black or black stripes on white? The question remains. Why do zebras have stripes at all? Some scientists think they could be a form of protection against flies. Tsetse flies are attracted to large black objects and appear to miss zebras. Then stripes can certainly provide camouflage. Where does one zebra end and another begin? Those predators that see only in black and white find it difficult to pick out an individual victim from the herd. It isn't a foolproof system, especially when once in a while the zebras spread out to claim their share of water. This is no crazy horse. It's a creature trying to rid itself of a predator's grip. The bucking bronco is simply following its natural instincts. If man ever tried to ride the zebra, he might get a similarly bumpy ride. Like all horses, zebras use their bodies to communicate with one another. By observing how their wild cousins behave, we can perhaps begin to interpret the messages that our own stable friends are trying to pass on. Every muscle and every movement communicates a message, from the tiniest twitch of the ears that expresses boredom or anger, to unmistakably defined shakes of the head. And when you think you're getting bitten for keeping your horse clean, be flattered. You're actually being accepted as one of the family. Mutual grooming such as this strengthens the bond of the herd. Not only does the practice get rid of unwanted parasites, it also reduces heart rate and helps the horse to relax. Horses need one another, not only to keep flies off, but for actual survival in the wild as well. The more ears and eyes you have to be on the alert for predators, the more time there is to eat, drink and rest. Given the chance, as with these feral horses, all horses revert to herd life. The stallions keep the herd together by rounding the individuals up from behind with a driving posture. This form of control is used by people. Most horses run together. Perhaps they regard whoever is herding them as the stallion. When horses run from danger, herd instinct takes over and they tend to stick together. Why then would any horse want to win a race? Certainly no horse would want to be last. A straggler at the back of a group is most likely to get picked off by a predator. But to be out at the front of the herd is also to be vulnerable and alone. So why do it? What makes a fast horse a winner? The rider. The horse responds to the rider's commands, understanding his sense of urgency. And the whip, like the stinging claw of a predator at the horse's back, reinforces the need to escape with speed. So while the horse runs for its life, man goes for the gold, or the betting shop, or the hat shop if you're going to the races. For hundreds of years, high society has flocked to see and be seen at the races. Perhaps at the top of equine society is the Arab, father of all racehorses. The Emperor Napoleon always chose Arab stallions, not just for their strength and speed, but to lift him to new heights. For looking at him on his horse, you would never guess he was a mere 1.5 meters tall. Or 15 hands. The height of a horse is measured in hands, from the tip of the hoof to the highest point of the back, known as the withers. Originally just the distance between little finger and thumb, used by the Egyptians, Greeks and Romans alike, the measurement was standardized by King Henry VIII of England. Now 1 hand equals 10 centimeters. The largest breed of horse is the Shire, measuring over 18 hands, while a small pony like this Shetland stands at only 10 hands. Between heavy horses and ponies come the light horses, the so-called riding horses, from 14 to 17 hands. We've measured the height of a horse in a standard way since the 16th century, but we didn't understand how a horse moves until the 1880s with the photographic techniques of Edward Muybridge. The horse has 4 different types of leg motion, each suited to different speeds. A horse walks, then trots when the legs move in diagonal pairs, almost together. Next it canters, a 3-beat gait. Graceful and elegant, with one foreleg and both hind legs leading, then the other 4, followed by momentary suspension. Finally it gallops in a 4-beat gait and seems to fly through the air like its mythical ancestor Pegasus. this speed, a horse will take 140 strides per minute and just over 2 breaths per second. Think of horses, think of the American Wild West. Yet horses became extinct in North America 10,000 years ago. There were no horses there until the Europeans reintroduced the domesticated horse in the 16th century. And what an effect. The arrival of the horse changed the whole spiritual and emotional world for the Native Americans and brought a totally new way of life to the American plains. The horse came, was harnessed, and was used to open up the whole continent. America quickly became a horse culture. From fighting battles to farming, riding became a central part of the American way of life. The prairie schooner, America's first mobile home. The trend towards horse locomotion spread like wildfire. And lasted right up to the invention of the railroad. The train was the first form of transportation to challenge the horse for long-distance hauls. Indeed, for some Native Americans, the association was so strong that the train became known as the Iron Horse. Similarly, the first cars were called horseless carriages. Although the car has taken over from the horse, engines are still measured in horsepower. James Watt invented the term, but its definition has changed over the years. Today, a 2-horsepower engine actually does the work of 3 horses. So driving a 300 horsepower Ferrari is like having 450 horses in your engine. The horse's role has diminished as a form of transportation, but not as a form of entertainment. Shows which combined horse spectaculars, acrobats and shadow plays were a runaway success and toured the world. Indeed, the circus ring was designed for horses. It was the trainability of the horse which helped create the circus and the sport of dressage so nobly demonstrated here at the famous French Academy of Riding. All these horses are stallions, and for a good reason. They're trained to express natural behavior, but in an exaggerated fashion. For instance, during the courbette, the horse's razor-sharp perception detects subtle signals from its rider. It instinctively knows when to resort to its natural behavior. In the wild, horses wheel round to avoid violent kicks in the face. This becomes the pirouette. While the passage is derived from the stallion's pre-mating ritual. It high steps to catch the mare's eye. It's more to do with instinct than artistic achievement. Horses respond so perfectly to our commands that we mistake their obedience for intelligence. But sometimes their behavior is hard to explain. The Celts of ancient Britain believed that horses possessed clairvoyant powers which enabled them to perceive invisible intruders from the spirit world. Our very souls in them. Is that what we see? The beauty, elegance and strength of the horse has always fascinated artists. Leonardo da Vinci developed a great passion for drawing horses. From his first equine sketches in 1478 to his later work, this Renaissance master elevated the horse to a symbol of nobility and power. Throughout the world, the nobility of the horse came to be reflected in the nobility of the rider. Good horsemen were expected to be honorable and courteous. This became the definition of chivalry, a word derived from the French word for horse, cheval. In medieval Europe, whole societies were governed by the rules of chivalry. In times of peace, the knights enjoyed jousting at tournaments where they could exhibit their skill, courage and chivalry. Today, the rules have changed, but the tradition lives on. Instead of knocking off an opponent's head with the jousting pole, it's enough to strike his shield to win the joust. No longer a fight to the death, but still a game of courage, skill and honor. One of the greatest horses the world has ever known is Bucephalus, ridden by Alexander the Great. In 300 BC, he established an empire that stretched from Greece to India astride Bucephalus. When the horse died, he named an Indian city Bucephala after his faithful steed. 2,000 years later, an unknown horse helped save a nation. No one knows the name of Paul Revere's mount. It was just a horse, faithful, reliable, strong, following the instructions of its rider, galloping for freedom. Times have changed. Today, in most societies, the horse has become less of a necessity and more a symbol. A creature bred for specific functions, its real instincts refined. But lurking close to the surface, there's always that other horse. Is that why we say, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink? We recognize an independence of spirit that will never be conquered. True lovers of horses recognize this ideal. For some, horse riding is an essential part of life from childhood to adulthood. We will always have a need and a desire for the horse.